My goal here is to help you skip at least the next decade with just this one video of potentially running round in circles. um, and this is what I went through, and this is what I've seen other people go through, and what I've seen and understood through my community. The first thing I want to bring up, and this is the most important thing, to realize that everything on the spiritual path is a concession until we recognize and realize and understand the paradox. And the paradox is that this path is filled with paradoxes because there are concessions. Because in order to understand one thing, we can't understand something without a provisional thing to get there, you see? It's like taking a step. Think of a concession like a step. We take a step to get to the next step. That's what the point of a step is, right? So on the spiritual path, we find there are many, many concessions. And typically, we're given concessions by a teacher or someone who's helping guide us. That won't always apply to you. So if you listen to somebody else talk to somebody else and they're providing a concession and you go, no, this doesn't make sense, sounds inconsistent, you're going to get stuck looping around the same things. Likewise, if you're given a concession and you believe that is the ultimate truth, then you're also going to get stuck there as well. So typically most teachers, if they're good enough, they'll be giving concessions to the right people at the right time. And our job is to not get so attached to not understanding something if it seems to be out of context. Now, this is only usually a problem when people don't go to the teachers themselves. They just watch secondhand content on YouTube, or they go and watch just YouTube content. It's just, you really ultimately, YouTube's there to bring you closer to that person so that you end up having conversations with them. I would never make YouTube with the expectation to not provide adequate support along with that, because I include so many concessions in what I'm saying in order to help people understand. It's not a compassionate approach to not provide any concessions to help people understand what it is that they're actually doing. Otherwise, we're just going to get lost and stuck and the whole teaching is pointless. And the ultimate paradox is that, first of all, we would be going towards non-duality. We'd be looking on a path of non-duality. And by the way, non-duality is not the end be all thing, by the way, just to put that out there. But it's a necessary part of the path in order to awaken to what we are on an absolute level. And this absolute level is just this pristine, absolute, zero-dimensional, non-existent, yet somehow existent awareness. And it is absolute. It transcends all. It is not something you cannot touch, see, hear, or taste, but it's inherent in all experience. It's what all experience is made of. It is that which cannot be seen, but is that which sees all. It is that which is whole, complete, fulfilled, infinitely happy, just pristine. Okay, and that's our true nature. Now, usually the path is just to get there to see that. But then because what we do is we get lost in duality. We get lost in the belief that duality is real, that the world is fundamentally a separate experience from ourself, that is made of a different substance, that is completely made of all, like, it's almost the belief that everything is made of its own individual substance. Basically, we have to see that that's not true. This is the first part of the process of this path, is seeing that duality isn't real. There's not really more than two things in this universe, and that we are the absolute that creates all of the substance of the universe, which is pure awareness. Then, once we see that, it's then necessary to see that everything then that we create, because we are the source of reality, is actually real. So then duality becomes the two sides of the same coin of non-duality. And some people may disagree with this, but I would suggest that the path hasn't been deepened enough yet, because we have to realize our humanity. And the next part of this process is realizing that humanity. And so many people get fixated on being, I am absolute consciousness, I am absolute, I am this, I am just simply this absolute pristineness, which is true. But you're also a human being having a human experience, sharing teas and coffees with people. So that is the place to be. That's the place that we're experiencing. That's what we're doing. And people say, I'm not the doer. Yes, you're not the doer as an individual, but you are the doer of absolutely everything. So it's first necessary to see you're not an individual doer, to then see you are that which does everything. And you're not doing everything as this finite mind, like your decisions as a finite mind are not making all the decisions of the universe. It's just that you have an autonomous individual experience. So decisions and things that are made in your direct experience are legitimate to your experience, but you're also an infinite being that is making decisions on behalf of another individual in another experience. That is what creates the individual, and we're not here to transcend individuality. We transcend individuality in order to then embrace individuality fully, because what we're experiencing is individuality, and that's not something we should be trying to remove on the spiritual path. So if we take the screen analogy in the movie, consciousness, the absolute, it's like the screen, and the world, duality, your humanity, individuality is like the movie that plays in it. Now, it's first necessary to see the absoluteness of the screen and that there's no real movie taking place, but as the screen, which is reality, we then give reality to everything in the screen, which gives it equal credit, equal importance, you see? They're two sides of the same coin. So with that being said, we're here to be autonomous and free, not to be a servant of God, not to be God's little helper, like Santa's little helper, like a little elf of God. We're here to be autonomous. And the process of learning this autonomy is what we call developing wisdom. So wisdom is inherent in our true nature, but through, we could call it the trauma of separation, the trauma of ignorance, we have lost touch with that innate wisdom. So this human process is basically about opening ourselves up to deeper and deeper aspects of our true nature so that we can naturally express these qualities. We don't want reasons to be compassionate. For example, we don't want to be saying, oh, I have so much compassion for these people. They don't know what they're doing wrong. They don't understand. They're just acting from their state of consciousness, as if that's the condition that you have on why you should be compassionate. And this is a famous quote from the Bible, forgive them, they do not know what they are doing wrong, or something like that. Jesus is saying that on a compassionate level to the people who are in ignorance. So Jesus is not going to say there, sorry guys, forgive them, because your absolute nature is absolute freedom itself. And he'd have to take them on a path of self-realization, which is just a long way of doing it. It would take way too much time. It's easier to say to them on a logical level, because he's not on the cross. Jesus is not on the cross going, oh, I should have compassion for them. Why though? Let me figure it out. Maybe it's because, well, technically speaking, they don't really know what they're doing. They don't really know I'm Jesus and that, I'm the Son of God. And, maybe I should just have a little bit more compassion for them. He's not thinking that, right? He's being the compassion. And then in that moment, when people were slating the abusers or I forget the terms, but you know what I'm trying to say. When people are knocking them, he says, no, don't hate them. Don't hate them. And he's like, well, the compassionate thing for Jesus to do in that moment, instead of trying to convince them of something that they're not going to understand in that moment, he just says, on this logical level, I can convince them to help them understand with reason. This, by the way, is the reason to have compassion for them. It's because they don't know what they're doing. If they knew, they wouldn't do it, right? So can we all agree to have some compassion there? That's what he's basically saying, right? That's his version of compassion in that moment, to help people understand without having to bewilder them with nonsense that they will not understand. This is another thing. We don't want to bewilder people. We want to give worthy inquiry. Someone comes to us with a question, we give a worthy response. We give a response that is adequate. We give a response that is an expression of the energy they give. We don't want to bewilder them with extra stuff and more things and more non-dual spiritual stuff. Especially, we don't want to just impose any of this understanding onto someone who never has asked us about it. That's another thing that we need to do. And the only reason we would do that is because we have this excitement, and I get it, but it's like puppy dog excitement. It's like the puppy dog excitement that, hurts the puppy in the end, you see. It's like my mother used to say, laughing comes to crying. I don't know why she used to say that, but it used to be true. It was just me and my sister would get really hyper. We'd end up hurting each other or falling off something. Anyway, it's like this young excitement that's necessary and it's beautiful, but just be aware of what you're doing with it, because you're going to push people away. You're just going to bewilder them. We don't bewilder the ignorant with our love of truth. It doesn't make sense. So really, we want this autonomy on our experience. We don't want to be reliant on the universe. We don't want to be trusting the universe. We just trust ourselves. You see? Like, there's so much more empowerment in trusting that you know what to do rather than that the universe knows what to do. You see? Now, I'm not suggesting that we can't have that relationship with the universe, right? It's a beautiful relationship to have. Even though the universe is what we are also both. So we can be the led and we can be the leader. We can be the guide and we can be the guided. That's a beautiful relationship to have. But what I'm suggesting is prioritize being the guide. Prioritize being your guide. Prioritize being the leader. Prioritize that autonomy. Then the universe just doesn't have to do much to support you. And you'll find that your leadingness is the universe that has put you in that position so that you have that autonomy. You see, we don't want to be a servant of God. We want to be God. We want to be that energy. And I don't mean to say that from an arrogant point of view, we want to be God, but you understand what I'm saying in the sense of we want to have that innate freedom, that innate pure creativity, that innate ability to create the life that we want and to live it with autonomy. That's ultimately what we're looking for, is that freedom. No one wants to be a puppet of something, right? God doesn't want to be a puppet. And if we are God, then we're not looking to be a puppet of something else, right? We want to be that thing. And this is what we're doing. We are puppeteering the body and the mind, but we're also the flat out experience of it. So it's like this both experience. The next thing I wanted to share was that we don't have to be overtly humble. We don't have to try and imbue this humility like it's some kind of certificate. Like, I've seen some introductions from teachers, and they'll say like, so explain to me a little bit about what you do, and the guy will say, oh, me, little old me, this tiny little fragment of the universe, not much. I'm just here to be a small part in the cosmic whole greatness, and I'm just a tiny little portion of it. Just so you're aware, I don't think myself as a big part of it. Just to be absolutely clear, I'm more of a small part. I'm more of this tiny little fragment part that just does a small little thing. And they try to completely discredit and disregard any responsibility from what they're doing. It's a little bit ridiculous, and I get it. They want to be show humility, but let's grow up a bit. We don't need to say those things, right? We need to own what we're doing and give credit to that. Right? Ultimately, it's the universe working through us, but we are the universe. So we're not going to claim that we are the leading authority in what we're saying, because everything that we said has already been spoken of before, you see? However, it doesn't mean to say that we need to be overtly humble in something just to try and get the point across. You see, because it's just more of the same. It's like egoic shyness. Right? We want to be expressive and take credit. We need to honor our role with humility, but also take responsibility at the same time. Because to avoid responsibility, let's just say for argument's sake, we just say, oh, me, little old me, I do nothing. It's just the universe that does it all. Then we also take responsibility away from our actions. We say then, oh, so if I say something that is incorrect, that actually causes more harm in someone's life. Oh, it wasn't me, it was the universe. You see? So where's the border between where we take responsibility and where we don't? Where's the border between where the universe is doing it and I have no part in the process, and I'm just this humble little creature who doesn't even know who I am, or the fact that we are actually engaging in the activity, then we do have a part to play in it, and therefore we are responsible for the consequences, you see? This is where we need to realize that. It's super important that we do, because we think it's a noble thing to suggest that I'm just the universe doing it. Really, it is us doing it as the universe. So we need to take responsibility on that level. And the word enlightenment is like an ego bait. It's a word that is supposedly points towards a state of being, but the word itself was created by people who didn't understand the word. obviously, because the person who did seemingly understand would never have claimed themselves to have been enlightened, you see? So what we find is that this whole process is about baiting the ego into this beautiful heaven on earth. And it's true in a sense, but it's not in the way that the ego interprets it. And teachers, I would assume, know this. And I would assume I would never use the word anymore. I don't think it's important to use, and I suggest to stop using it because it's not that big a deal as you think it is. It's more casual than that. It's not this extravagant experience. And just think of like the Indian traditions is where this word has come from. Have you seen a Bollywood movie? It is way over the top. Enlightenment is like the Bollywood movie equivalent of just saying the word happiness, true happiness or unconditional happiness. So we don't want to be looking for this state of mind. We want to be very vigorous in just knowing that what enlightenment really means is to simply understand what I am on a fundamental level and to be capable of expressing that clearly into the world. And just because we have recognized our true nature, it doesn't even make us a good human being. So to even see enlightenment as this pedestal state of mind that is just far beyond everything else, it's not that big a deal because there's still more that we need to understand about integrating that. So enlightenment, it doesn't make you necessarily a good human being. It just means that you've recognized your true nature, but you're still going to have imperfections. You're still going to have conditions, and you're still going to have a lot of stuff to kind of reintegrate and re-recognize. The next point is that it's okay if you want to teach. A lot of teachers and people condemn people who want to teach this type of understanding. The only requirement that I found, and this is something I asked my teacher, and he told me this was his answer, is your love of truth and your love of sharing it. And I completely agree. But to add to that, in my experience, is that you have to take it off the pedestal. You have to take it off the pedestal. And you can't let anybody else be your validation for wanting to share it or to be your requirement. People think, no, you should be given, you should be knighted and anointed by a greater teacher to give you the privilege of sharing such a grand experience. It's just not the way that I see it, and it hasn't been in my experience. And I would argue it's the same in my teacher's and his teacher's experience. If you need approval to share this understanding, then you're not ready to share it. Because if you want to share it and you need approval, what would you need approval for? Is someone going to dissect your mind, check what's inside and see if you're ready enough to do that? Absolutely not. They will never ever know. You can only know, and you're only going to know when you're nonchalant about it, where it's not a big deal, where it's just something you love to do, just like any other thing you love to do, whether that's gaming, whether that's playing, making music, whether that's dancing. It's just something that you see as an art form that you just thoroughly enjoy. It's not something that you think is the grandest thing ever. That's when you know that you're not quite in the right zone for it. So you can't put anything on a pedestal, not even the truth. The minute you put the truth on a pedestal, you're going to be sharing from a place that is more egoic than anything else. So really take it off the pedestal, and when it's integrated, at least to an adequate degree, you will see that naturally occur. If you're watching this far, you've probably already recognized your true nature. You probably know that you're infinite. Now, most people, they recognize this pretty organically, just naturally, without much guidance. This is just the world we live in. Many years ago, when these scriptures and teachings and everything were written, people weren't just waking up to their true nature randomly in a park. They were very few, and very rarely would that happen. Nowadays, it's just happening left, right, and center. Most teachers are teaching you to get to that recognition. In fact, most traditions are written in order to get you to that recognition, presupposing you're completely ignorant to it. Now, nowadays, these are less effective purely because we're at a different age where people are just waking up to that already. Now, what happens is we wake up to it, and out of our complete ignorance to even what it is we're waking up to, and if we're even the only one in the world who knows it, I fully believed that at first. I thought I must be the only person to know this, and I was almost anxious, like trying to figure out, do other people know this too? Am I just this lonely little character who's awakened to this? Absolutely, obviously not, but this is the problem with waking up without guidance. Now, what I did was went back to teachers who tried to teach you to get to that place to begin with. That part was already solved. Most people get stuck there. They recognize their true nature, then go to teachers who are trying to wake them up to their true nature, and those teachers haven't fully recognized their true nature enough to see that that person is already at that stage. So they keep repeating the same things and get stuck on a path for God knows how long. So we need to go to teachers. We need to drop teachers that aren't fulfilling the requirements and the needs that we have, and find a teacher who is able to take us through a post-recognition, take us through an understanding that is going to progress us after that initial awakening and guide us to a place of equilibrium. And it's not going to be one extreme. It's not going to be this extreme of I am absolutely consciousness, I am this absolute nature, and that's all I am, because it's not all you are. You are a human being right now, and if you are reality, and this is the reality you're creating, even if it's an illusory reality, it's a reality that you are giving reality as the source of reality. You have the power to do that. That is what we're doing. So to discredit that and to not include that is a misalignment on the path. So this is what I would suggest, is finding a teacher who can take you through that process. People have asked me in my community, Saja, so many people have told me to surrender, to stop doing, to let go. But when I try to let go, I keep trying to letting go, which is another doing, which is another form of resistance. How do I just stop doing? It doesn't make sense. And to solve this paradox, you need to see that you doing something is your natural state. If you are in an egoic state or a state of resistance, you doing is what you're doing naturally. You see? If you've been born with a clenched fist, you are naturally in a clenched fist. That's what nothing feels like doing for you. You see? So when you try to do, you're just doing more. So if you were born with a naturally clenched fist, for example, then your natural state is clenched fist. So the minute that you try to stop doing, you will just continue to clench your fist, because that's your natural state. So if you're in an egoic state and you're trying to stop resisting, that means you would be trying to do an inaction, which would leave you in the same place. If you, however, say to yourself that you're going to do something, instead of contrary to what people are telling you to do, which is to stop doing something, do something. And the thing you're going to do is you're going to give yourself the freedom to suffer. And in that freedom, you will let go of the suffering, because you cannot do something, because your natural state is resisting. So if you do something, that will be your version of letting go. For example, if I have a clenched fist and someone tells me to do the letting go of my hand, this is what will happen. If someone tells me to not do the letting go of my hand, well, I'm just going to stay the same. So this feels like doing something, but actually we know that this is the natural state of the hand. This is the letting go, right? The hand is naturally like this and it's not like that, right? So if we were to tell somebody it feels like a doing, but it's actually a relaxing. So from the point of view that we're in when we're in resistance, if we simply tell ourselves, I'm going to give myself the freedom to suffer. For so long, I have resisted my suffering. I have tried to stop my suffering. I have tried to let go and do all these things. I'm just going to give up all of those things. I'm just going to give myself the freedom to suffer. And you'll find that in that freedom, you will stop suffering. Just start giving yourself the freedom to suffer. You will find in that freedom that you will no longer suffer. I have a free community. The link is in the description. I give exclusive videos, exclusive Q&As, meditations every single week. If this is something you'd be interested in, feel free to join. I'd love to see you there. Have an amazing day, guys. Take care.